From the cold, endless fjords of Scandinavia came men whose sails struck terror across the medieval world. To monks, they were demons. To kings, they were nightmares. Yet beneath their legend of war lay a society that lived without the boundaries of Christian morality. The Vikings believed the world was forged in violence, that creation itself had begun when the giant Ymir was slain and his blood became the sea. In such a universe, cruelty was divine, and power itself was proof of virtue. They were poets and killers, traders and rapists, philosophers of steel. Their sagas speak not only of heroism, but of lust, vengeance and madness, of men who laughed while killing and prayed while drinking from skulls. To the Norse mind, pleasure and pain were woven together. Death was not a punishment, but a passage, and sin was a foreign idea. The Christian chroniclers who survived their raids wrote with disgust and awe. They are beasts clothed as men who burn with fire in body and soul alike. But those same chroniclers misunderstood something crucial. The Vikings did not act from chaos alone. Their cruelty had order, ritual, purpose, and meaning. Religion ruled the Viking world, but their gods were not merciful. Odin demanded blood, Freya demanded passion, Thor demanded courage, and the Vikings obeyed with terrifying sincerity. The blood eagle. Few images in human history are as disturbing as the blood eagle. The condemned, often a king or traitor, was bound face down while the ribs were sliced open from the spine. The lungs were drawn out and spread like wings. Whether myth or fact, the ritual represented absolute domination and sacred offering to Odin. Skaldic poetry described the victims singing with their last breath. Even if the tale was exaggerated, it reflected something real. The Viking conviction that agony could be art and sacrifice could sanctify. Human offerings at Uppsala. At the great temple of Uppsala in Sweden, foreign travelers reported sights that chilled the Christian world. Every 9 years, the Vikings held a grand blot, a sacrifice to the gods. 9 of every creature, including men, were killed, hanged from the sacred trees, or drowned in the nearby lake. Their corpses swayed in the wind like offerings to eternity. To modern eyes, it is barbaric. To the Vikings, it was cosmic balance, life feeding death, death feeding life. The Feast of Bones. Excavations in Denmark and Sweden reveal pits of bones mixed with feasting debris, animal skulls, human remains, ritual cups carved from femurs. Warriors celebrated slaughter by consuming roasted meat beside the corpses of their enemies. Blood-anointed weapons, skulls became drinking bowls, and songs praised both murder and mead. They believed that by consuming flesh, they might absorb a slain man's strength. A grim echo of cannibalistic superstition still whispered in sagas. Faith was not gentle. It was ecstasy through terror. To understand Viking lust is to understand their power. It was raw, violent, and bound to conquest. In Norse culture, sex was never private. It was public, political, and spiritual. Women and war raids often ended not with gold, but with flesh. Women were taken as trophies, slaves, concubines, or wives by force. Viking sagas casually describe warriors sharing captured women after victory. In law, a man's wealth was partly measured by the number of women he commanded. Yet Norse women themselves were paradoxical figures. Some were brutal and free, shielded maidens who fought beside men and carved their own legends. Others were priestesses in fertility rituals that combined pleasure and prophecy, sacred lust and fertility feasts. The goddess Freya was both lover and killer. Her followers held ceremonies in which intoxication, dance and coupling were offerings to the earth. Some accounts describe orgiastic rites in spring, fields illuminated by torches, songs rising into the dark, bodies painted with ash and honey. Christian missionaries who stumbled upon these celebrations fled in horror. To them it was sin. To the Vikings it was sanctity, the language of shame. But Norse society was not without rules. The greatest insult was to call a man arga, unmanly.
The word of God.
Accusing him of taking a passive role in sex could provoke murder. Masculinity was sacred, dominance divine. Shame was weaponized. Entire blood feuds erupted from rumors about bedchambers. This obsession with virility infused every level of Viking life. To dominate another's body, in battle or in pleasure, was to prove one's worth to the gods. Their morality was not purity, but power. Among the most feared of all Viking warriors were the Berserkers, men possessed by divine rage. Clad in bear or wolf skins, they entered combat shrieking, biting their shields, frothing at the mouth. They felt no pain, no fear, and often no reason. Modern theories suggest hallucinogenic mushrooms or psychological trance. But to contemporaries, Berserkers were holy, Odin's chosen madmen, vessels of his fury. When their fury ended, many could not return to sanity. Some legends tell of Berserkers murdering their own kin in drunken delirium. They lived between worlds, half man, half beast, the feast of excess. After victory, the longhouses became theaters of ecstasy. Barrels of ale and mead poured endlessly. Under torchlight, men drank until they collapsed. Brawls turned to killings, laughter to howling. Chronicles describe grotesque contests, men swallowing raw hearts, setting fire to slaves for sport, or forcing captives to duel for amusement. Whether all these tales are true or partly myth, archaeological sites littered with charred remains suggest that the line between banquet and massacre was often erased.
Strength through discipline.
The Berserker ideal, power without limit, infected even peace. The Viking world admired frenzy, whether in battle, in love, or in drunkenness. Restraint was for the weak, passion was for the divine. Their feasts were not celebrations of life, but reminders that life itself was temporary and only glory endured. When Christianity finally reached the north, it came with fire and iron. Missionaries built churches where pagan temples had stood, and kings baptized the same hands that once wielded axes. But the old spirit of the Vikings did not vanish. It retreated into myth, into stories that still fascinate and disturb. They became symbols of freedom, exploration, and courage. Yet beneath that image lies their truth. A civilization that glorified violence, worshipped lust, and found beauty in blood. Their depravity was not mindless evil, but a reflection of their world. In the endless darkness of the northern winter, with famine and death ever near, indulgence was a kind of defiance. They drank because life was short. They killed because death was everywhere. They took what they wanted because tomorrow was not promised. And still, within that savagery, there was brilliance. They built ships that could cross oceans, carved art from bone and silver, composed poetry that still echoes through centuries. Perhaps that is why the Vikings endure in our imagination. They were both creators and destroyers, proof that civilization and barbarity can live in the same heart.